obedient audience. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. What a great way to start the week. The Boston Harbor Hotel and the New England Council. I want to thank the sponsor of this morning's breakfast, Lenthius Medical Imaging, and in particular, Ira Goldman, who will introduce our very special guest in just a few moments. Lenthius is a global leader in the development, manufacturing, commercialization of innovative diagnostic imaging agents and products, and they are headquarters here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in North Billerica, to be precise. They've been a very active member of the New England Council for a number of years, and boy, are we grateful for their ongoing support, not just this morning, but for the last several years. It's hard to believe we're already nearly halfway through 2025, the New England Council's centennial year, and we continue to have a very busy calendar of activities. I think we've done probably 35 in-person events, governors, senators, congressmen, all over New England and in Washington. Here in the Commonwealth, we're looking forward to a breakfast program in the coming weeks with Congressman Jake Auchincloss and Governor Maura Healey. We'll also be in New Hampshire this week for a very special Politics and Eggs program where we will hear from respected political analyst Charlie Cook, as well as former Representative Andy Custer and former Congressman Peter King about the first 6 months of the Trump administration, as well as looking ahead to 26 and 28. And then later this month, we'll be in Hartford for a breakfast with Congressman Joe Courtney. And as always, you can find more information on all of these events on our website, newenglandcouncil.com. But today, we're delighted to welcome back a longtime friend of the New England Council and a longtime friend of mine over the decades of his service in Capitol Hill, and that is our very good friend, the Honorable Senator Ed Markey. So again, I thank all of you for joining us here this morning, and now I'm very pleased to hand it over to Ira Goldman of Lenthius to introduce our very special guest.
Wow, it's a great crowd here. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to New England summertime. Where is it? But no, it'll come back, I'm sure. But anyway, thanks. Good morning. Thanks to Jim and the council for organizing what is, a great event as usual. And it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Senator Ed Markey. He's well known to us, of course. He's appeared here many times and really needs no introduction given his long history representing Massachusetts voters, and he's also well known for his quick wit, so I'm sure we'll be treated to that this morning. Senator Markey has never forgotten his Malden roots, where he was born, raised, and still lives. He's been an unwavering champion fighting for residents across Massachusetts, from gateway cities like Lawrence, where his father grew up, to the Commonwealth's vibrant rural communities. There's no fight that he has not taken up for the people of Massachusetts. Senator Markey, together with Senator Warren and the rest of our Massachusetts congressional delegation, are working hard to prevent budget cuts and policy changes that would adversely impact the EDS and MEDS pillars of the Massachusetts innovation economy. Unfortunately, those things are in the news every day, as I think we know. As a ranking member of the Senate Small Business Committee, Senator Markey is actively challenging tariffs and cuts to federal funding for workforce training, healthcare, research, and so much more. Over the course of his congressional tenure, Senator Markey has passed over 500 pieces of legislation and is an internationally recognized champion for the environment and against climate change. He was a critical architect of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Senate author of the Green New Deal. Senator Markey is also a member of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, otherwise known as the HELP Committee, where he has worked to further affordability and availability of state-of-the-art healthcare technologies. In this regard, it's important to note his leadership in ensuring patient access to Alzheimer's diagnostics and therapies, which Lantheus and others in the audience are working to bring to the many families afflicted by this terrible disease. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about Lantheus. We were founded almost 70 years ago on Albany Street, not very far from here, by two scientists from the Manhattan Project. So if you've seen Oppenheimer, you're familiar. And they wanted to bring to life President Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace initiative. Since then, we've been pioneering the use of medical radioisotopes and radiopharmaceuticals for the diagnosis and treatment of human health. Today, we're headquartered in Bedford with a facility in Billerica and more than 400 employees in eastern Massachusetts and almost 800 across the country. We're the leading radiopharmaceutical-focused company with proven expertise in developing, manufacturing, and commercializing cutting-edge radiodiagnostics for detecting and treating prostate cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases. Millions of patients across the United States are administered our products every year as we find, fight, and follow disease to improve outcomes and lives. Before I turn the podium over to Senator Markey, I want to express my appreciation for the work of the New England Council. I continue to be impressed by the bipartisan work of the Council and the invaluable opportunities it has afforded to engage with regional political leaders and decision makers. Thanks again to the Council for organizing today's event. Senator Markey.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you, Ira, so much. And I note from Ira's biography that he also worked for the International Atomic Energy Agency, which, of course, right now is doing critical work in Iran to make sure that there is not a dramatic increase in the amount of weapons-grade, nuclear weapons-grade material, which is produced by the Iranians. And, of course, it was a huge mistake pulling out of the agreement where we had the IAEA in certifying that Iran was a year away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon. Now it's probably about a week. And so we need to encourage President Trump to negotiate with Iran once again so that we can have a peaceful resolution of that issue. But I thank you, Ira, for your whole career working on important issues of that nature. And, of course, I thank Jim Brett. Jim Brett, the organizing principle of all of our lives, right? It's just, he takes so much, he just does so much on an ongoing basis to make sure that there's a conversation about our New England economy. And that's why I'm so proud to call him my friend for decades. And why his leadership is just so absolutely essential. So Tip O'Neill used to say that all politics is local. In the Donald Trump era, all politics is loco. Okay, that's where we are. That's where we are. And that loco that we're dealing with in Washington affects the local. It affects us here. It has a profound impact on all aspects of our lives. Sean Gobley, you know what I'm saying? It's just absolutely critical. State Representative Sean Gobley, I see you over there. It's just absolutely critical. And it's why the New England Council is so important, because it does help to give us an organized response to what we are seeing occur down in Washington. And it is critical that we band together all of our states in order to make this case that this is a very destructive economic plan which Donald Trump is seeking to implement. And Jim's leadership has helped us to band together over the last 3 or 4 months in order to have a united response. And this year, as we gather, there is profound uncertainty, chaos, crisis in Washington and in our communities, which are not just background noise, but daily reminders that the values that we hold most dear freedom and opportunity and access are under relentless assault. The headlines speak for themselves, but behind each of those policies are real people, real consequences, real threats to our most vulnerable in all of our communities. But it is in moments like these when the ground feels unsteady that we must draw closer to one another. When our institutions are tested, it is our relationships, our shared values, and our unwavering commitment to community that become our strongest defense. And no place understands that better than Massachusetts and better than New England. Because time and again, Massachusetts and the region have shown what it means to lead, not just with innovation or policy, but with compassion and courage at the same time. We take care of each other. We show up for one another. We don't let go of the principles that define us no matter how strong the headwinds may be. No one bullies Massachusetts. That's why we're so proud that it's Wilma Hale as the first law firm to stand up to Donald Trump and to win in court. It's why we're so proud of Harvard University standing up and fighting for the principles that we all believe in. It's why we are so proud that 1 million people marched from Boston Common over to Boston City Hall Mall. We were up first 2 months ago, rallying to fight for all of these principles that we believe in. And at the heart of all of this is the Massachusetts Advantage. It's our business plan that we have constructed. More than any other region of the country, New England knows how to anticipate. We did so when we said that the British were coming, and we have been initiating this cutting-edge view of what has to happen from that first day 250 years ago, to be first in clean tech, in biotech, in high tech, in healthcare, in biosciences, in education. That historic shot heard round the world has become groundbreaking shots in arms during the pandemic and moonshots to cure Alzheimer's. That's who we are in Massachusetts. We look ahead, we invest in the technologies of the future, and we're leading the way because our economy is focused on the high growth industries of the 21st century. So the Massachusetts business plan for our economy is very simple. Number one, we encourage the entrepreneurs that are educated here to innovate here, to stay. We draw the smartest young people from around the world and around our country, and then we encourage them to stay. Number two, we connect them with the funding that is available in Massachusetts. Per capita, we are the highest venture capital state in the United States. That's what makes it attractive for those young people to stay. Three, we support the immigration that brings skills and ambition into our communities, our schools, and our workforces. We roll out the red carpet for immigration. We welcome them to our shores. And fourth, we give our entrepreneurs and industries access to the best educated and the healthiest and the most skilled workforce in the United States who can produce their product. And even with that, we're not satisfied where we are in healthcare, and we're not satisfied where we are in education. Because we know, even though we're number one in America, that we can do much better in terms of all of these programs that we have for young people in our state. So that's our goal. And just lay out a couple of quick facts here. We're a state with 100 colleges and universities. Thank you, ACM, for being here, and thank you for your leadership on all these issues. 10% of MIT graduates come from Massachusetts. But 35% of MIT graduates, they stay here after they come, including 45% of doctoral students. 22% of Tufts students are from Massachusetts. 43% of them stay here after they get their education at Tufts University. That's our business plan. We draw them here, we keep them here. 80% of all of the Chinese students who come to MIT, they stay here after they finish their degree. 80% of them. And we know that a third of all of our businesses are started by immigrants. That's our business plan. It's to get the smartest of them and to not demonize them, which is why we know that the key to our future economic success and our nation's economic success is our ability to keep these bright young people from our regions, colleges, and universities here. Because we're not just the Bay State, we're the brain state. That's what makes us special. And that's why Trump's attack upon all of our universities, all of our international students, is a direct attack upon who we are. And again, in 2024, we received $8 billion in venture capital. And that represented 28% of all national VC dollars, second only to California. And we link the investors to the inventors. We link the professors to the producers. That's our business plan. And we get the ideas out of the laboratory and into the factory. And it all starts in the classroom. So this crusade that Trump has against our universities, led by this attack on Harvard University, telling them that their international students must transfer out or just go home to their home countries, is an absolutely devastating blow to who we are, to the Massachusetts business plan. But since it's broader than that, it's a nationwide problem that we're going to have. We should be signaling to the rest of the world that we want them, we need them to come to our country. Our biotech firms need them. Our clean tech firms need them. Our hospitals need them. These are brilliant people who they come to our home state and they love what we are and they stay. That's under incredible assault. So right now, we have 82,000 international students here in Massachusetts. What do they contribute to our economy? $3.9 billion. That's the tuition. That's the housing for those kids. $3.9 billion for our economy. You put a ban on them coming, it not only is a long-term threat to us, but it's an immediate threat as well in terms of those revenues that are flowing into the universities, but then all of the surrounding communities in terms of what that means. And then, again, the ripple effect is that the students who would otherwise file patents in biotech or telecom or medical equipment, they are not going to be able to do it if they're not here in the first place. And they're being recruited. Europe is now trying to recruit them. So isn't Asian countries? There's a wild recruitment effort on right now all around the world to tell graduate students you shouldn't have to have a sword of Damocles over your head year to year wondering whether or not you can stay in Boston or New York or California or other states where you've been planning since you were 18 to go to school. We have those most brilliant of all kids. And they are saying around the world now, we'll put the package together for you. So it's happening, for example, in Alzheimer's research. Almost all of them are now being given offers to take their research teams and just go to London, go to Paris, go to McGill up in Canada. That's a threat to us. And you can go down each and every one of those diseases and see what the impact would be upon us if the breakthrough doesn't occur here. You know, you saw the story just yesterday about this threat to Moderna in terms of all the cuts to them. The company that finds the COVID vaccine is now concerned with their own viability, because of what the Trump administration is doing. That's who we are. And so this threat to cut $3 billion from Harvard, the threat to just slash NIH research broadly across the nation. Well, NIH isn't just the National Institutes of Health, they're the National Institutes of Hope. They give hope to families that there will be a breakthrough. It's research is medicine's field of dreams from which we harvest the findings to give hope to families that we'll find a cure for Alzheimer's or cancer or diabetes or Parkinson's or any of these diseases that run through every single family that is represented here at every single table. All of that's under assault. And so we have this incredible moment where it's not just going to be a brain drain, it's going to be a brain slain. We're going to kill it. We're going to kill it. That's what we're talking about. And we recognize here in Massachusetts that education ultimately is the ladder of opportunity for all of us who are in this room right now. That's why we're here. That's what differentiates us from our grandparents. And for most of us, it's what differentiates us from our parents. It's just access to education that they were denied. And it transformed Boston. It transformed Massachusetts, that they put together a plan. Just the preceding generation invested in all of us so that we could be in this room. And that's why I am going to vote no on every one of these cuts, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a battle. We're going to have a historic battle down in Washington that goes right to the heart of what each and every one of these crazy ideas would mean for our economy. And again, my father drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company, and I'm a United States Senator. I don't work harder than my father, and I'm not smarter than my mother. I just had more opportunities than they had, plain and simple. So what Trump is doing is Trump is bringing out the Malden in me every single day on the floor of the United States Senate. That's what's happening, okay? Because the kids in Malden now aren't Irish, Italian, Jewish, and WASPy. Now, 75% of Malden High School last year were minorities. And I still live in Malden. And these kids and their parents are working just as hard as all preceding generation of immigrants did. But we have another word for them. We just call them the future. That's the future of Massachusetts, what's going on in Malden, because half of the kids in the state are going to be minorities in the next 10 years. So either we invest in them and we don't demonize them, we don't make them afraid, and that's what's happening when they see a story where Ramesa Ozturk, the Tufts graduate student, is whisked off the streets of Somerville and taken to a prison in Louisiana, 100 miles outside of Baton Rouge, with no charges made against her, a Fulbright scholar doing her thesis on the positive uses of AI. Is that really a threat to our society? And Ayanna Pressley and I, Jim McGovern, we had to go down to the prison just to put a spotlight on her to get her released. And they still haven't charged her with a crime. It's 2 months later, no crime yet. And Marcelo, this great kid from Milford, same thing. They kept him for a week. They knew for a week he wasn't who they were looking for, but they just kept him there. Why are they doing it? They're trying to make families afraid. They're trying to create a chill in all of these immigrant communities. That's what it's all about. And when Trump deploys the National Guard or federalizes it to go into LA in a situation that the police already had under control, it's for a very simple reason. He's trying to distract America from what he's really trying to do. And that just becomes the circus. That was never a threat in LA. They had it under control. The governor didn't ask for any additional help. No president for 60 years has sent in federal troops without a governor requesting it. Why? Very simple. Because when we come back today, I'll be back in Washington again, we continue this debate over whether or not there should be a $700 billion cut in Medicaid. Whether because of this bill that they had, there should be a $500 billion cut in Medicare. Whether or not there should be a $250 billion cut in SNAP, in child nutrition. I know that a lot of the people who care about that program are here in the room right now. To cut $500 billion from the clean energy revolution. That's Greentown in Somerville. That's the engine in Cambridge. That's hundreds of startups. And some of them are going to wind up like Vertex did because of biotech funding, because of NIH funding, needing 1 million square feet. That's our business plan. That's who we are. So this is going to be an incredible battle, which we are waging down in Washington. And we're going to have to try very quickly to move back to the big story, because all of it is intended towards getting that funding, $760 billion, $500 billion, $250 billion, $500 billion clean tech, to get the $2 trillion for the tax breaks for the millionaires and billionaires, okay? That's what the whole thing's all about. That's the bottom line promise that he made to his supporters in 2024. So we're going to try to keep our eye on that, because that's the Boston business plan. Yes, we abhor what he's doing to the immigrant community, and we're going to fight him every single step of the way. But we have to focus. And by that, I mean, it's my responsibility to ensure that I'm working with Republicans, that I'm talking to Republicans about what the impact will be of Medicare and Medicaid on rural hospitals in our country. They will get devastated. When Gingrich cut massive amounts of funding from Medicare in 1997, all my hospitals out of my congressional district at that time told me it would be devastating. And they were right. Within 2 years, Mullen Hospital went under, Riviera Hospital went under, Stoneham Hospital went under. Why is that? Because they have those older populations. And if you're looking at the Medicaid program as it's now evolved quite dramatically, and you put it together with Medicare, then you're looking at a devastating impact. If you're looking at our community health centers, they need that funding to just stay open. They just need the funding to stay open. We have 7 million people in Massachusetts. 2 million of them are on Mass Health, which is Medicaid. 2 million of 7 million. 70% of people in nursing homes are on Medicaid, and half of them have Alzheimer's. That's what pays the bills. Half of all children in America are on Medicaid. That's our business plan, to make sure they get healthy starts in our country, because they're coming from family backgrounds. Yeah, they're poor, but a lot of them are just blue-collar families as well who qualify for Medicaid. But that's what funds these hospitals. So, for example, Children's Hospital in Boston, they need that first level of funding, which then makes it possible for them to be the #1 innovation hospital, children's hospital in the world. But if you take away that Medicaid guarantee, if you take away from Mass General, Beth Israel, the Medicaid and Medicare funding, which they expect to have there as the foundation, then it causes basically a seismic-like threat to their ability to be able to then be the platform for all of the other medical research, which is under attack, but that they also perform. And again, it all goes back to our business model. So that's our challenge. In clean energy, we have hundreds of companies already. It's Form Energy coming out of Somerville. But we have companies that were going to receive these tax breaks that absolutely were going to transform the clean energy economy in our country. I'm going to give you the big number. The big number is 94% of all new electrical generation capacity in the United States in 2024, we're going to repeat the first sentence again, 94% of all new installed electrical generation capacity in the United States in 2024 was wind and solar and battery. 6% natural gas. Now, that's a threat. That's a threat to the natural gas industry. That's why Trump is trying to kill offshore wind. Because we just want to plug in all that electricity, bring it in. We don't need natural gas. We're too dependent upon it. It's causing rises in energy costs that are hurting families and they're hurting businesses. And if you kill the tax breaks for solar and for onshore wind as well, you've further made our region dependent upon energy sources from other regions in the country when we had a capacity to find our own pathway for the next generation. And why is he doing it? He's doing it for the natural gas industry. The oil and gas industry last year pledged to Trump when he said, if you give me $1 billion, I'll kill all of those clean energy tax breaks. They went out, they raised the money, and now it's just pay to play. They're getting it back and killing all these programs. So what am I doing? So I'm working with my Republican colleagues, especially from the red states, because 80% of all that funding has gone to red states in the IRA, 80%. And it's already created 400,000 new jobs. The way we drafted the bill is that if you do the manufacturing in an energy transition state, meaning West Virginia, et cetera, you get a bonus 10% tax break. So that's where it all went over the last 3.5 years. Now, if they cut those tax breaks, it's going to mean 900,000 jobs are going to be killed over the next 10 years that were going to be otherwise put in place. So I'm working with my Republican colleagues to try to find a pathway here to keep as much of that clean energy strategy for our country in place, because we've got a three-pronged threat, and it really affects us in Massachusetts. Number one, we have AI, which is rising, and AI could literally double the amount of electricity that is consumed in our country over the next 10 years. If we're not able to add all of that additional electrical generation capacity, which we had planned from the clean energy sector, it's going to make us much less attractive to have AI manufacturing be in our state, because we'll have less electricity and it'll be more costly. So we have to have a plan that makes sure that that is possible. Number two, there is a massive export of LNG out of our country. Massive. And the more that we export LNG, liquefied natural gas, is the higher the price is for the remaining natural gas. Again, that all affects us. We're natural gas dependent here. This is the Trump plan. This is their business plan. This is the oil and gas plan. And then we have headlines of, oh, look at the high prices. Well, it's their plan. They're implementing this plan. And number three, they want to kill the tax breaks for wind and solar, all electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, battery storage technologies. They want to kill it. What does that mean for us? Well, it means that all these companies that we have here who are developing new batteries, new metals, new transmission systems, right? Those tax breaks are not going to be there. And we would have the jobs here, but then the manufacturing might also occur in other states, but we are the ones that are going to be right in the front lines the way we are in biotech on these issues. That's their business plan. It has a profound long-term impact on us, which is why I'm working with Republican senators, talking to them about why it would not make sense for them, given the massive job creation which they've seen in their states because of that tax bill, that they should not kill it. So AI, I'm just going to add, I'll add one more thing here. There's a Dickensian quality to AI. It's the best of technologies and the worst of technologies simultaneously. It can enable, it can ennoble, but it can also degrade and it can also debase. So yes, we want the benefits of AI. We hope it can find a cure for cancer. We hope it can do many things. But in the meantime, I've introduced my AI Civil Rights Act, which every major civil rights group in the United States has now endorsed, to put all of those safeguards, those civil rights safeguards, into AI technology. What the Republicans are trying to do coming out of the House of Representatives is to ban any regulation of AI at the state level for the next 10 years. You know who agrees with me that they should not do that? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Hell is freezing over. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ed Markey. And so we're going to have the ban. So we're going to fight that ban. We're going to get it out because in housing, in employment, in education, especially the impact AI can have upon children, unbelievable, 1 in 3 teenage girls last year considered suicide. 1 in 10 teenage girls in America attempted suicide last year. 1 in 5 LGBTQ youth attempted suicide last year, and the Surgeon General is pointing the finger at social media as a big part of this problem. So we have to work on that AI issue. We want to get the benefits, and we'd be a big beneficiary, but we don't have a choice. So the aim of all these actions from Trump has been kneecap our economy of brain power, bow to his dream of absolute power. The attacks on NIH, on the Department of Education, on Harvard, on the clean energy tax credits, on everything from the National Weather Service to the Foreign Service to the Corporation for National Service to NPR. And NPR is the only radio station in the most rural parts of Alaska and Maine, et cetera, which is why I think we might be able to save a big part of it. When Trump talks about ending federal investments in science and research and development, our Massachusetts business plan is under assault. So Medicare, Social Security, our seniors are at risk. When he talks about closing the doors to dozens of nations and banning those looking to flee war and violence, our entire American way of life is at risk. When he wants to impose tariffs and have a tariff war, big businesses might be able to survive it. Small businesses will not survive this. This creates too much uncertainty for small businesses, and we have 700,000 small businesses in Massachusetts. Out of 7 million people, we have 700,000 small businesses. They can't engage in a 1 or 2 year tariff war. They'll go under if we don't get some certainty into that marketplace. And at a time when our nation's politics and very identity are at a crossroads, it's more important than ever that Democrats and Republicans come together for a business plan for our entire nation. So that is my commitment to you. That is what I will try to do in partnering with Jim and partnering with all of you on an ongoing basis to put in place the kinds of policies that work for our economy. And if any of you have any individual concerns, please call me. Please call Jim Cantwell, my state director, who is sitting right over here, and we are more than willing to work with you to try to solve your individual problems as well. Thank you all so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
The senator didn't have many notes when he rattled off all of those cuts in the different agencies. The impact it's going to have on the Commonwealth. Obviously, he has studied this inside out, and it's pretty evident here today. If I could just ask a couple of questions and then maybe a question or two from the audience. This is going to be a big week, as you already indicated. The Majority Leader Thune has indicated he might have an outline of a plan this week. But reading in between the lines, there seems to be a couple of senators on the other side, Republicans, who have indicated they have real problems eliminating what the House did on the clean energy tax credit. Senator Curtis of Utah, Senator Tillis of North Carolina, Senator Collins in Maine, Senator Lisa Murkowski. There's 4. Is there a real chance that the clean energy tax credits will not be eliminated? They may be reduced, but not eliminated.
Yeah, well, it's pretty draconian the way the House bill was passed. It said that after Trump signs this bill that you have 60 days to get your new clean energy project in the ground, which of course is unrealistic. So what we're going to try to do is work towards pushing out the date, pushing it out from 2025 to 2027, 2028, 2029. You need to act in good faith towards all of these companies that have been relying upon a federal law. And again, working with the senators who you just mentioned, and others, by the way, to preserve their own long-term economic viability. Here's a sentence I never thought I would hear uttered, because Samsung is building 6 huge manufacturing facilities for solar in Georgia. He said about 6 months ago, Georgia is leading the way to become the electric, clean mobility leader for the Western Hemisphere. Now, that wasn't a sentence he was uttering 2 years ago, okay? It's the tax break. It has them now seeing solar, has them now seeing these other energy technologies. So we have a chance to work with them. And again, it's going to have to be bipartisan, which is why this is so important. But it's based upon the practical impact which these cuts will have upon their economies. So Form Energy, for example, from Somerville, they have a battery storage technology, utility scale, like half the size of that room over there, which they can now manufacture and slap up next to a utility, and then for 100 hours be able to store that electricity if it's solar or wind. Well, that kind of transforms the role that solar and wind can play, because you basically reduce this threat from intermittent, it's windy at night, but not during the day. It's sunny during the day, but not at night. So how do you store it when you got it to use it during those other periods of the day? Kevin Honan, always a leader on these issues up in the State House. So the goal has to be to then work with. So right now they have 400 employees from Somerville working in West Virginia, Form Energy. Their goal is to have 800 employees within another 2 years. And since this is going to be a vastly expanding industry, both here and internationally, they could have upwards of 1,500 employees down in West Virginia. So that's something that they didn't have on their scoreboard before we passed the IRA in 2022. We have Boston Metal, over another Somerville company, is looking at West Virginia to do their manufacturing. And again, in each one of these instances, we get the 200 or 300 innovators and scientists here, and they get manufacturing jobs, right? That's the partnership that we're going to have to try to explain to them, that that's the future, and we're heading that way anyway. And by the way, if we don't, we might as well just put gift wrapping paper in a bow on top of the clean energy and biotech industry and hand it over to China as a big present, because they're on our heels. And we have a chance to lead and to unleash all these young people, or else China will just take over the industries of the 21st century. The industries of the 21st century that we in Massachusetts were always at the cutting edge and leading. So that's another argument that we can make with the Republicans. Why would we do this and hand it over to the Chinese? Why would we allow them to not be a competitor, but pretty much be a monopolist in terms of all of these technologies? Taking away the EV tax break, the electric vehicle tax break, and all of the tax breaks for electric vehicles, well, the whole world's going to go electric vehicle over the next 15 or 20 years. That's where it's all heading. So to the extent to which we have a plan and it's in place and it's moving, it would be crazy to take away all these tax breaks. We're only 5% of the world. Are we going to be exporting or not? Massport is the entry point here for trade for all of New England. I helped to get the $60 million to dredge the Port of Boston. I put that money in so we could be a welcoming place for all of the Panamax huge vessels that now come through. We had to totally widen the Boston harbor capacity to be able to welcome all these places, all of these countries' products. And here we're seeing a real threat to the number of containers which will be coming in or leaving from Boston Harbor, right? So that's our business plan. Again, it's not just Boston's, it's everyone's. So my answer is we're going to try to work on a bipartisan basis, explaining the role that the manufacturing states will play and the innovation states to try to preserve as much as we can, but most likely just pushing back the dates to give us more time to derive the benefits and then be able to explain it in years ahead why we should continue down that pathway. Yes?
Yep. You mentioned about healthcare here. It's the innovation of the country, but we're in jeopardy of losing $3.5 billion that you and your colleagues have built up over the years. I think we're the second per capita in the country recipient in NIH, but it's on the chopping block here, that $3.5 billion. Is there any discussion about working with other colleagues on the other side of the aisle in North Carolina, the Triangle, at Duke University, Alabama, which gets a very generous portion of NIH funding, Texas, because I think that's the only way we save NIH and so many other programs, if we can find allies on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah. My mother died from Alzheimer's. She used to be able to do calculus for fun at the kitchen table, even though she never went to college. Girls just didn't go to college. That's the way it used to be. But she was smarter than me, smarter than my brothers, and we knew that. It was an honor to have her be our mother. She could do Latin on site, French. She contracted Alzheimer's. My father drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company. When my mother got Alzheimer's, my father said, Eddie, we're going to keep your mother in the living room here in Malden. No one's touching your mother at 2 a.m. in the morning with Alzheimer's. It was an honor that your mother married me, Eddie, and we're going to keep her right here. Well, there's 7 million families with that right now in America, Alzheimer's. After my mother passed away, it took me about a year, and I created the Alzheimer's Caucus. There was none. There was breast cancer, AIDS, etc. But Alzheimer's is a funny disease because none of them survive. There are no survivors. And they can't advocate for themselves. So I created the Alzheimer's Caucus, and Susan Collins became my co-chair in the Senate. I was in the House. So we created, and this is just going to be one example of why I'm hopeful about bipartisanship. So our big bill, Susan Collins and I, was in 2014, and what the bill says is that the NIH has to tell the appropriations committees in the House and Senate each year how much money they need to find the cure for Alzheimer's by 2025. At that point, Alzheimer's was getting $400 million a year from NIH. This year, they're getting about $4 billion. But last year, we realized that we're not going to find the cure, so Susan and I, we extended it out to 35. So the $25 billion that went into Alzheimer's research for the first 10 years is now going to have approximately $50 billion for the next 10 years. So it'll be a $75 billion, not mission to the moon, but mission to the mind. We have to solve this problem. And why do we have to solve it? We have to solve it because last year, the United States spent $240 billion on Medicare and Medicaid for Alzheimer's patients in America. $240 billion. We're asking for $4 billion for research, for a cure. Now, if you slash that, you're only guaranteeing that you're going to push back the date at which we find a cure. And if you really say you care about a deficit, you can't have one disease when all baby boomers have retired and 15 million have Alzheimer's. That'll be 700, 800 billion a year that will just be spent in Medicare and Medicaid. And when people say, well, we'll cut that, no Republican will have the nerve to tell grandma that she can't stay in a nursing home. No one's going to tell the children, we're sending grandma home to you with Alzheimer's. They're going to vote for that money, and the deficit will continue to explode. And that's where, and I'm talking to Susan Collins about this issue, we have to just continue that funding. We can't allow that to be cut. But the same thing is true for cancer, same thing is true for diabetes, for Parkinson's, you name all the diseases. So that's where, just going back to NIH funding, where we have to think about this as something that's, a job creator for us, and it is. It's a huge economic engine for Massachusetts, but we're also the place, partnered with other regions of the nation, that are finding the cures, not just for our nation, but for the rest of the world. And I'm optimistic that all of the groups, the disease advocacy groups, are talking to Republicans. Because God decided that there would be even number of Democrats and Republicans who would get Alzheimer's and heart disease and all the way down the line. Huh? And so we just have to touch them personally in order to save that money or save the vast bulk of it. That's going to be my goal, Jim, and it's my goal, to my mother, and to all families right now who have Alzheimer's, but every other disease that threatens them. And my mother always said, Eddie, it's better to work smarter and not harder. And she would say that after she said she was going to donate my brain to Harvard Medical School as a completely unused human organ, okay? So investing in research is working smarter. spending $240 billion in Medicare and Medicaid money is working harder, and it's only going to blow out. And I think we can make that case to Republicans of goodwill in the Senate and hopefully save that program largely intact as well. So again, Jim, I thank you. I thank all of you for joining us today. And again, if I can help any of you in any way on any of the issues that you care about, please reach out. I want to be there for you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Picture of the senator.